Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And today's range report is definitely on something different and interesting, and something that I was completely unaware of that ever existed. Today we're going to be taking a look at the FN high power double action, no, not the double action only, this is a double action single action pistol, compact. So this is a compact high power that is double action, single action, and it comes from an era of FN's history where they tried to modernize the high power, and I think unsuccessfully so. Of course, FN has rebooted the high power lately with some of their newer models, but this is from about 25 years ago. But before I get into the things that I like and don't like about this gun and share with you all of the information that I have about this, I always want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this awesome pistol who linked it to the channel for review. His name is Richard. He's a local subscriber. He told me he had a couple of really cool guns that I might want to see, and this was one of them. So thank you so much, Richard. As always, I want to thank my Patreons because their monthly donations and support really help keeping the project of the Texas Gun Vault alive. I couldn't do this without them. And as always, I want to thank the person responsible for always getting me all the ammunition for these range reports, thus making them financially feasible for me, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And I'm 100% sure if you're watching this review today, you like the Browning high power. In fact, I have a few others here on the table that I'm going to talk about in this range report. And I know that when it comes to wood panel grips, man, you can really deck out a high power and make them look nice. And guess what? The high powers are one of Mark Brown's specialties. So I know that I'm rolling in some footage of his best work, and I know if you're watching this video, you probably own a high power, and I'm telling you, these wood panel grips that are customized to you with custom logos and custom engravings would look absolutely fantastic on your pistol. So I'm gonna put a link in the comments section below. I'm gonna ask you guys to go over there, see what he has to offer. If you have any ideas for what you wanna see on your Browning high power grips, I know Mark can hook you up. So please go over there and contact him and thank him for supporting the Texas Gun Vault. And when you do contact him, please tell him the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so let's talk about what this gun is and what I personally know about it. Now, the owner of this gun, Richard, tried to do some research and he contacted FN. And they said, you gotta contact FN in Belgium. And when he did, he virtually got no response. They really weren't interested in telling him anything about the gun. The only thing they said is you need to contact Browning, who typically imports the Browning high powers. However, this wasn't imported by Browning, so they'd have no information on it. The markings say it was imported by FNMI in Columbia, South Carolina, so the US version of FN. Now, he says that only about 2,000 of these were made, including the full-size variant. And yes, they did make a full-size variant of this. And just to show you the different sizes, here is a standard high power. This is a Browning import. There is the compact. So it is smaller. The magazine capacity is only 10 rounds. And that is the size difference. But they did make the double action, single action variant, both in full size and compact, but the compact is more rare. Now, this was made around 2000, and give or take a couple of years before the turn of the century and after the turn of the century, FN tried to modernize the high power. They knew that this was an aging design, even though it was still used by militaries and police around the world. After all, many of their competitors offered modern handguns with many more options, and shooting styles and preferences had changed. Now, they did offer a double action only version of the full size. I've never seen it in the compact, and I did do a little bit of research. And they also offered this particular variant, which was made by FN around 2003, and this has the SFS trigger system in it. And essentially, it was trying to overcome many people's complaints about not being able to carry the high power cocked and locked. So in a traditional high power, you can put the gun on safe. However, that safety is not known for being very strong, like a 1911. The detent just isn't the same. So people do not recommend carrying a standard high power cocked and locked. But to overcome this, they came up with this system. And now there are a couple of companies that offer this trigger system in the aftermarket, like Cylinder and Slide. However, this one was made by the original company, and the name is RDIH. And I forgot what that stood for, but this was a factory installed trigger in this gun before it was imported. But essentially, the way that this thing works, and of course, let me safety check this gun. We are good. When you cock the gun and the hammer is back, all you have to do is push the hammer forward, and now the gun can be loaded and carried safely with the hammer down. And to cock the hammer, all you have to do is push the safety down and it cocks the hammer, and you are ready to go. So that is how that works. And this is another one of those ideas for them trying to modernize the high power. So that is what this is. I think it was designed kind of for concealed carry, trying to modernize the high power. Really cool and interesting design, and a really cool piece of history. I've never seen one before, and I was completely unaware of them before Richard told me about it. Okay, so let's talk about the things that I like and don't like about this. Now, many of my likes on this gun are going to be the same as pretty much any high power. First and foremost, it's an FN. I think FN makes fantastic guns, and it's all metal construction. This is not a polymer handgun. Now, I like polymer handguns, but when you go to the range and you carry an all metal framed handgun, it just feels a little bit better. That recoil impulse is just better in the hand. And I like that about this gun. I also like the fact that this gun has a redesigned hammer. Now, the traditional high powers, whether they have the commander style hammer or the regular type of hammer that you would see on a high power like this one, when I shoot them, I get hammer bite. Lots of hammer bite, and it hurts after a while. However, this hammer is redesigned to not have that issue, even though the beaver tail of this pistol is very short. So I like that a lot. I also like the fact that this shares all the ergonomics of the high power. So it has the same grip angle. Even though the grips are a little bit shorter, it still feels good in my hand. And that's something about every John Browning design. When you hold a John Browning design, it is designed to be held by a human being. It wasn't an afterthought. He did a great job, and that translates well into this pistol. And I also absolutely love the size of this. Man, I now wish, for after holding it and seeing it, that more companies would make a Browning high power in a compact size. That is just so cool. I bet finding holsters for this is nearly impossible right now, but if there were more companies that made guns like this, we would have more options. Now, some people are probably going to ask, hey, is that a safety on this gun? It is not. When the hammer is back, you do have a decocker. So a lot of people are going to like that with a double action, single action handgun. All right, so let's talk about a few of the things that I don't like. Now, the fact that this is a double action, single action handgun, we have both a single action side to the trigger, which when I dry fire, it really feels like a traditional high power. But then we have the double action side. And as you can see, this trigger is way far out there. I don't have a lot of room to put my finger in there with how curved it is. And I got some big old fat meat sausages right there. So when I put my finger into that trigger guard and I'm going to pull back on the double action mode, it kind of sticks into my finger a little bit weird. The reset is also really long, and that's just an artifact of the new design. Now, the resets on traditional high powers aren't that great. This one I find to be a little bit longer and a little bit worse. Obviously, in a compact gun, we lose some capacity. These magazines only hold 10 rounds, and good luck finding one that's flush fit with this gun. These magazines are as rare as hen's teeth. Now, Richard said he was able to recently find 2 or 3 more, but unfortunately for this review, I only had 1 magazine. And it's my understanding that these are pretty darn expensive if you can find them. And I guess that just goes with all the parts for this gun that are different than a standard high power, that if they break or they wear out, you're not finding a replacement part, and you would have to have it custom made. So in this range report, I am going to kind of baby this just a little bit because it's not my gun and it is kind of rare, and replacement parts are going to be impossible to find. Now I know I mentioned about the ergonomics a moment ago, but there is one thing about this gun that I like in concept because it kind of is a holdover from the military, but when you hold the gun, it's not nice. And that is, this thing comes with a lanyard loop. Yeah, many military firearms, see if I can get this into focus here. It's trying to focus on me. There we go. The lanyard loop. Now normally that's not really a big deal and you could probably take that off, but I would not want to mess with this because it's part of the original design. But when you hold it, or I do, that lanyard loop is right there digging into my palm. I don't like that. As I said, you can take that off, but that's part of the design. And I think if you're going to have a gun like this that's this rare, you want to keep it as it came from the factory. And the last thing that I don't like is the finish. Now, during this period of FN High Powers, they put on this painted finish. It's not a Cerakote, it's not an ion bonded finish. It's honestly kind of a low-grade black finish. I believe they put it on the standard Mark IIIs, and my other personal high power from this point in history also has that same finish. It shows a lot of scratches and scuffs very easily. I don't think it's a very durable finish. It looks okay. It's not one that I would personally want. Now, the other finish that they offered in this time for the commercial high powers was this high polish blued finish, and this is on my Browning. I don't like this finish either because it's too polished. It's like those Colt royal blue finishes on those old revolvers. It shows every fingerprint imaginable. I've always wanted one that was Cerakote. I've seen some people do some Browning high power restorations and they put Cerakote on the frame and the slide and they can make them look really good. But I'm not a big fan of the finish that comes on the factory high powers of this era. I just don't think they're that durable. It shows a lot of scuffs and scratches. And as I mentioned, I just don't think it's going to hold up over time. But this is the original finish for this firearm. All right, I have rambled on enough. I've told you everything I know about this pistol, what I like and don't like. So let's get this thing to the range. Now, there's going to be a couple of caveats with this. I know I'm still talking here, but I only have one magazine for this review, so I'm not going to shoot multiple magazines at the same time in the same footage, so you just got to bear with me with that. The other thing you're going to notice in this range footage is that there is a lot of talking, laughter, and other things in the background. When I went to the range to film this, there was a very large party of novice and new shooters, and it kind of made me a little bit nervous. And if you want more about that story, go check it out on the Texas Gun Vault 2. It's my behind the scenes channel. Those people were being a little bit dangerous. I wasn't happy with them, and I was able to power through the footage for this one, but I wasn't able to shoot footage for the other reviews that I was planning to do that day. So bear with all the noise in the background. All right, so now let's get this thing to the range. As always, I'm going to start with one magazine, only 10 rounds. Set up the target at 7 yards. I'm curious to see how this thing shoots, what the trigger is like, what the recoil impulse is like, and if I have any major issues. So you're going to see one here right in the beginning, but I'm going to talk about it as soon as I get done. So here we go, 7 yards, 10 rounds. Let's see what happens.
Okay, tuck it in your shoulder. Oh, I see. There you go. It's not.
All right, so let's talk about the issue you saw first. As you saw, I had a hard time getting this gun loaded. I inserted the magazine, pulled that slide back, and the slide wouldn't go home. At first, I thought it could be a magazine issue or something else like a slide stop. Well, I think it is the slide stop, and let me show you what the issue is. Now normally, when the magazine is out of a gun or the magazine is loaded and you have a round in the top of the magazine, when you pull the slide back, the slide will go home. However, if I lock the gun open, and yes, the magazine is out of the gun, sometimes this slide stop will stay up. As you can see, oh, it went home that time. It's kind of a crapshoot on when it will go home. It went that time. Sometimes it will not. As you can see there. Yeah, and there we go, about 3 or 4 times. So I've cleaned the gun, I've taken it apart. I don't see anything wrong with the gun, but something about that slide stop likes to stick. And you're gonna see me struggle with that and some other range footage coming up. So when you see it, you know what it is. It doesn't seem to affect any other aspect of the gun, but it is a slide stop issue, which might be fixable with another slide stop, because that slide stop does seem to be the same as any modern slide stop. But I'll let Richard figure that one out. So how did this gun shoot? Man, I thought this thing shot great. It felt great in the hand. The recoil impulse definitely feels like you're shooting a gun, but it's not too heavy. These grips are really nice. The gun feels very ergonomic. I think it's pretty darn accurate for me, and for being what it is as a double action, single action trigger, it's actually pretty darn good. I like it. It kind of reminds me a lot of the feel of a modern SIG trigger. So if you shot a modern SIG like a P225, 226, 228, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It feels very much like that. But right now, I'm really impressed with it. It seems to be a natural shooter. All right, well, I'm going to load up another magazine. I'm going to double the distance of this target, go for the head on this IDPA silhouette, see how I do. But right now, the gun is shooting really accurate. I'll see if I have any other issues and just see if I can keep this group pretty good. And I'm happy with that grouping and those results. This gun feels fantastic. Except for that slide stop issue, I really, really like this gun. Not just the way it shoots, but also its concept and its philosophy. But man, is it a great balance between size and performance. This is one of the nicest compact handguns I've ever shot. I feel like it's just an extension of my hand. So far, I'm falling in love with this thing. All right, so now I'm gonna do my bench rest test. Well, it's not really bench resting, it's more of me just shooting it against a barrier. I'm gonna set out the target at as far as I can at this range at 25 yards, shoot for the center, and just see what happens to this grouping. So far, this gun is really accurate for me, so I'm hoping to get good results. But let's see how I do. Unfortunately, that grouping opened up a little bit, and I think it has to do with the sights that are on this pistol. Let me show them to you. They are a standard 3-dot system, and for whatever reason, these dots are kind of big for the size of the gun, and I think a better set of sights would produce better overall accuracy. And one thing that is nice is these sights are dovetailed, and I'm going to assume, and let me get that into focus there, that standard high power sights will fit this, but that's only an assumption. But I think a nicer set of sights that might be a little bit smaller would give you more accuracy. But overall, it did pretty good for practical accuracy for my application and as a concealed carry handgun at that distance. All right, so now let's go on to the next test. I said this is double action, single action. So you guys are probably asking, what if I shot an entire magazine double action only? What would happen? What would the accuracy be like? Well, let's test that. As I said, all you gotta do is push down on that lever. It decocks the gun every time, and every pull will be double action if you do that between every shot. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm curious. I mentioned that this gun shoots like a SIG. Well, I shoot SIG double actions pretty darn well, and in some cases better than the single actions. I'm curious if that's gonna be the case with this as well. So here we go, 7 yards, double action for every shot, and let's see how I do.
Okay. You can change it after. It was like 80. It sounds like good again. Yeah.
And you know, I'm pretty happy with that. I only had one flyer in there. Now, one thing I probably should show you on camera is what the trigger pull of this gun is like. So let's do the double action first. So here is the long double action. There it is. You can kind of stage it, has a little bit of grit, but not too bad. I would say it is perfectly fine for duty use. There's the pull. Now let's take a look at the reset. Kind of far, but the reset is tactile and audible, and then you have some take up afterwards. So that is what that trigger looks like. All right, so now we've tested that. I'm pretty happy with how this gun is shooting so far, but if you are gonna carry this, you might have to shoot it fast. Now, normally I like to do the quick magazine change test, but I only have one mag, so we're just gonna shoot this thing fast. And I'm curious, with this longer reset, am I gonna have any issues? But here we go, one more magazine, shooting it as fast as I can, maybe in a defensive scenario type of setting. So let's see how fast I can shoot this thing. And as expected, with that longer than usual reset, it was very hard for me to get a rhythm. I tried that with 2 or 3 different magazines and I had exactly the same results. The best advice that I could give anybody shooting a gun like this is to fully remove your finger from the trigger. Go as far out as you can and then pull again. That's going to slow you down, but that ensures that you get beyond the reset. And I guess if you only shoot this gun and you train with it, you can kind of figure out where it is going to reset. But for me, I just could not get the rhythm down. But the gun shot really well. I'm overall happy with the performance, and maybe with a little bit of a trigger job by a competent gunsmith that knows Browning high powers, you might be able to get it a little bit nicer. Now, as I said, this gun is designed for concealed carry and maybe for the ladies, so I want to give my wife Becky a chance to shoot this. She likes guns this size, chambered in 9mm. I let her hold it before going to the range, and she liked the ergonomics of this gun, the size and the grip. So I'm hoping she shoots it as well as I do. So let me load up a couple more magazines, give her a chance to shoot it, and get her thoughts. So I know that was only one magazine through the gun, but she did shoot it 3 or 4 times, and believe it or not, that was the best grouping she got. She said the gun was very, very comfortable. She likes everything about it. It feels great in her hand. She just didn't shoot it well. And this is kind of a change of pace for us. Often when I'm struggling with a gun, she shoots it really well, but I'm shooting this thing awesome, and she did her best. And that was the best grouping she got. I still think it's practical as a concealed carry gun for her. I wouldn't be worried about the accuracy, but for her, she couldn't shoot the tighter groups. Why that was, we couldn't figure out after about 3 or 4 magazines. But overall, she's really happy with it. She likes it. She just wishes she could shoot it a little bit better. Now, one thing to say about these grips is I don't know where you would ever find grips for this. Maybe Brownworks can make them. However, they're not wood panel grips. It's a unigrip, and the grip comes off with a single screw in the back. So that looks like Browning high power grips on the side, but there's no screw in the traditional place, and there's one screw in the back. So it all comes off as one piece. So you'd have to have grips specialty made if you don't like the ergonomics of this, and they might have to take the gun in and do some measurements. But that's just something to think about if the gun doesn't fit your hand. All right, so what are my final thoughts on the Browning high power double action compact? A really rare variant of the high power. Well, I was excited to get to shoot this. I really like the philosophy of this gun, the size of this gun, the history of this gun. I just have a couple issues. I do have that slide stop issue, and my wife has the accuracy issue, which I don't have. But overall, the gun performs great. This thing checks so many boxes for me. It's just cool, and it's cool and different. And I could really see a place in the modern firearms marketplace for a gun like this. And in some ways, I hope FN will reintroduce this in some variant. I know they just came out with the new high powers, and they're spelled differently. This is HI-POWER, but the new ones are HIGH, and they've redesigned a few things. They look really cool, and I definitely want one in flat dark earth. But I think they need to come out with a compact version of it. I'd also like to see them offer some magazines for those people that own these. But this thing is cool, rare, shoots well for me, and Richard did say it was his concealed carry handgun for some time. So very interesting, awesome gun, and I really like the upgrade. The fact that it is a double action, single action high power. It's so different. So on my star system, how would I rate the FN high power double action compact? I give it 4.75 stars out of 5. Now I know some people would probably give it a lower rating because it is a high power. It does not have a rail for accessories, and it is not cut out for a red dot like many modern guns are today. However, taking into consideration when this gun was made and what it is, I am perfectly fine giving it 4.75 stars out of 5, and I would love to see this come out again, and I'm really interested in this gun. If I ever see one of these for sale for a reasonable price, I'm definitely going to have to pick it up. I may have to ask Richard and say, hey, if you ever sell this, would you let me have first offer, because I'm really into this gun. This is one of those range reports that I thought it'd be like, hey, cool content. But after shooting it, I'm like, I want that. That is awesome. So what do you guys think? Do you like this gun? Is it something you had ever heard of before? And would you want one if they offered it again? The compact, high power, double action, single action. So cool. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. I know some of you high power lovers and some of you high power haters are going to have a lot to say. So, as always, thanks for watching.